what is Fourier transform, and we will touch upon the Fourier transform concept. Again, I will not go into much details or much depth into all the mathematics of Fourier transform, because I don't think 1 hour will be sufficient for this. But I will try to kind of introduce you to different kind of Fourier transform. Why do we need them, and what are the differences in different Fourier transform? Because I have seen sometimes that people are confused that why do we have DTFT? Why do we have DFT? What is the difference between DTFT and DFT? So I will try to touch upon those concepts. So this will be the flow of this particular talk. First, I will try to break down the problem that why do we need Fourier transform? Then some basic fundamentals, and then different types of Fourier transforms. Then what is the importance of DFT and FFT? Because if you are working on a project or if you are working in industry, you are always coming across DFT. You might not be calculating DTFT, you might not be calculating CTFT, because you might be feeling that these DTFT and CTFT concepts are only limited to our books. But when we are actually realizing, or when we are actually implementing the systems, we are only talking of DFT and FFT, more on the FFT. So we will try to understand why so. Then what is the role of the FFT size? Because FFT size, the N, that is a very talked parameter. We always talk about it. What is the role of that? And then application of Fourier transform in 5G NR. Okay. So assume for a wireless communication system, we designed a system. For example, a system which delays the input and applies some gain. Okay, so it is like I have my input, it passes through this. So let's say it is Xn. At the output, I get some gain and some delay. Okay. So in real world, the input signal Xn.
So this Pulkit, here yes, we are getting some gain. So we are giving the gain, right?
Yeah. This is done by this system.
Okay.
So in real world, the input signal Xn to the system can be of any type. It could be a single sinusoidal signal. It could be a summation of two sinusoidal, or it could be any arbitrary waveform. Okay. And our motivation or our goal is to find out the output, or to characterize or to know something about my system, so that given any input, let's assume this arbitrary waveform also, given any input, I can easily calculate my output. Okay, so I'll repeat myself. The goal is to characterize or to know something about the system, so that given any input, I can easily calculate my output. So the question comes that how can we find the output for all these different types of input? So here is the answer: with the help of impulse response or frequency response. I'll touch upon a bit details about these two terms also. So we only need to find the impulse response or frequency response of the system only once. Then given the input, any input, we can find the output. Okay, so it will be like this, that suppose there is some impulse response of the system, which is Hn, and we know our input, we apply any input. So we can calculate the output by the convolution operation. Or this is actually in time domain. This particular equation is in time domain. Or if we talk in the frequency domain case, this is the multiplication. Frequency response multiplied by the input. And an LTI system can be completely characterized in time domain with the help of its impulse response. Now, and yeah, this particular convolution equation can also be written like this. This is just the convolution formula. Okay, so what is impulse response actually? Impulse response, let's say I have my system, and it is doing anything. So I will again assume that it is applying some gain and giving some delay. So impulse response is what is the output of my system when the input is an impulse function. So let's say input is an impulse function and output is, I am assuming, some yn. So in this particular case, output will be some k times delta n minus n1. So this will be my impulse response for this particular case. So again, impulse response is nothing but the impulse response is an output of a system when the input is delta n. And how useful is the impulse response? If I know the impulse response of my system, I can calculate output given any input. And frequency response is nothing but if we take the Fourier transform of impulse response. Let's represent it by delta fk. Okay, so these are just this is time domain phenomena, this is frequency domain phenomena. Nothing special about it. So some basic fundamentals about the Fourier transform. So Fourier transform, it is a technique to convert time domain signal to frequency domain. And we can represent a signal with summation of infinite sinusoidal signals. So I had drawn that arbitrary waveform. So the concept is that with the help of Fourier transform or Fourier series also. So here I am not emphasizing on the Fourier series part, but the concept is that any signal, even this arbitrary waveform also, can be represented as summation of infinite number of sinusoidal signals. So you might have heard that it is a multi-tone signal. Okay, so in that multi-tone, one tone represents one sinusoidal signal at a particular frequency. And multi-tone is when there are multiple sinusoids at different frequencies. Because sinusoidal is such a signal which has only single frequency component. Other signals are such that we have multiple frequency components. And that's how we can represent any arbitrary waveform using summation of multiple waveforms or multiple tones. It will be like this. This is actually a Fourier transform formula. Yeah, so here a little bit intuition is that this complex exponential, it actually represents my sinusoidal signal. Okay, so if we come to complex domain, we use this complex exponential, which represents sinusoidal. Yeah. So here the sinusoidal signal and complex exponential play an important role in representing discrete time signals. Or we can say that complex exponential sequences are eigenfunction of LTI system. Now this is a new term, eigenfunction. What is eigenfunction? So eigenfunction is response to a sinusoidal input is sinusoidal with the same frequency. Okay, so again I'll talk in terms of the complex exponential. Let's say I applied some complex exponential. The output, I'll write it as y. So other properties of this system may change. Other properties like delay, it can have different delay, it can have different gain, but the frequency will remain same. If this is the case, then for this particular LTI system, this complex exponential is an eigenfunction. You focus on this term. Omega naught is here, omega naught is here. So after when the signal is passing through the system, the frequency is not changing. Okay. So these fundamental properties of LTI system make the representation of signals in terms of sinusoids or complex exponential very useful in linear system theory. So that is the reason, because the complex exponential is eigenfunction of an LTI system. So this actually helps in calculating the Fourier transform. Okay, so you may have read those concepts, eigenvalues, eigenfunctions in linear algebra. I think people are familiar with those concepts, right? Or yes or no?
Yes, yes, Pulkit.
Yeah, so it is the same concept that is used in LTI system.
This Pulkit, can you repeat this eigen function?
Yeah. So eigenfunction, let me think of a simpler example.
So Pulkit, we can in terms of linear algebra, we can think of this as a like a in linear algebra we apply a x is equal to
Yeah.
lambda x, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a any vector transforming to a given vector with a different gain, right?
Different gain. Yeah, it will be
Yeah.
something like this, right?
But in the same
Okay.
direction of the x vector, right?
Yes. So it is like that. I applied. I should not write x here. Just give me a minute. So is this equation correct? Let me think on this.
So this equation should be like a x is the vector which should be input, and a is the matrix. It's a transformation which is giving you lambda x.
Correct.
So
That's what I was waiting for. Okay, so this will be like this, and this is my a. Correct. Okay, so I'll just briefly touch upon this. That let's say instead of an LTI system, I have one matrix. So matrix is what? It will rotate. It can rotate my signal. It can scale my signal. Okay, so for example, let's take a two-dimensional matrix. So two-dimensional matrix, let's say 2002, something like this. So if I pass any vector, let's say a 2 cross 1 vector, so it will do what? It will just scale my system. Correct. So
Okay.
the output, what will I get? 2x1, 2x2. I can write this as 2x1, x2. Correct. So what did I get? Let's say, let's think this in terms of a xy plane. I applied x at the I applied x at the output. This vector is not rotating. It is not changing its direction. It is only changing its amplitude.
Okay.
So this will be actually 2x1. So in this case, I can say that lambda is my eigenvalue and x is the eigenfunction. Similarly,
So here in this case, 2 is the eigenvalue, right?
2 is the eigenvalue. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So similarly, if we take this analogy in LTI systems, here A, which is a matrix here, in that case, that will be my frequency response. X, which is an eigenfunction here, will be an complex exponential. Okay. So this is just to give an intuition that why complex exponentials are important to LTI systems.
So Pulkit, we can just make an analogy like eigenfunction is nothing but here in terms of linear algebra eigenvectors, right? I mean.
Yeah. Eigenfunctions and eigenvectors. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and eigenvalues are nothing but that gain. Okay.
Yes, it will be. I think system dependent.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. If someone has something to add on this, they can feel free to speak. Okay. I have some. Okay. So the concept of frequency response of LTI system is same for continuous time and discrete time system. Okay. So this frequency response concept doesn't depend whether I am dealing with continuous time system or discrete time system, except there is one important difference that for discrete time system, for discrete time LTI system. So when we say discrete time system, continuous time system, the LTI should be assumed, because we are only analyzing our linear time invariant systems. Okay, so the only difference between continuous and discrete is that for discrete time system, the frequency response is always periodic with period 2 pi. Okay, I will also touch upon this concept as we go further. So yeah, let's now touch upon that. What are different types of Fourier transform that are available in literature? So first is obviously continuous time Fourier transform. Second, discrete time Fourier transform. I think we discussed about this yesterday when we talked about what is the x-axis in our Fourier transform. And next is the discrete Fourier transform. So if you are working in industry or if you are working on a project, this one is important. Yeah. So these transforms differs on the basis whether the time and frequency domain signal are continuous or discrete. Okay. So with this table, I tried to capture the various differences in them. Okay. So let's first start with the continuous CTFT. In this case, both time and frequency domain signals are continuous. It is not periodic in time domain as well as frequency domain. So this is just our simple Fourier transform. DTFT case, we studied that yesterday also, or not studied exactly, we touched upon this yesterday. So we are getting a continuous time signal, we sampled it, I got some xn, and then I take its Fourier transform. Here I am writing DTFT. Why DTFT? The full form is discrete time. The time parameter is discrete, but we saw that its frequency spectrum was looking something like this. Correct? And we said that it is limiting from minus pi to plus pi. So it is continuous in frequency domain. That's why discrete time Fourier transform. So this is continuous in frequency domain. It is not periodic in time domain, but it is periodic in frequency domain. Periodic in frequency domain with a period of 2 pi. Now, when we are actually implementing them, let's say either on a DSP chip or in, let's say, MATLAB simulation, we cannot deal with a continuous system. And I think all of you know the reason, because a computer cannot deal with a continuous system. We have to sample. Correct. So if I just sample the frequency domain system so that it transforms from continuous to discrete, I reach to DFT. Okay, and that is the motivation to use DFT, because in DFT both time domain and frequency domain signals are discrete, and a computer or any chip or even the MATLAB simulation, because we are anyway running that on a computer, they can only deal with discrete signals. Is this clear? Okay, I take it as it's clear. Now, because we sampled a periodic signal, so as this was this was periodic in frequency domain, so this will also be periodic. Now, to answer the question whether it is periodic in time domain, let's understand this in a different manner. So, am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Pulkit.
Yeah, I will try to give you an intuition that how do we determine that whether it is continuous or, sorry, it is periodic or not. So suppose I'll start with when we have a continuous signal. Okay, when I had xt. So let's say my xt was something like this. So when we sample it, so I'm sampling this in time domain. So its frequency counterpart will become periodic because of the sampling. So I'll not go into much detail that why it is becoming periodic, but just try to take it as an intuition so that we can answer some quick questions. So when I am sampling in time domain, the frequency domain counterpart become periodic. Similar case is valid for reverse analogy also. when I am sampling in frequency domain, this is my omega. When I am sampling in frequency domain, so here, because it is sampled signal, I'll represent it by k. When I am sampling in frequency domain, its time domain counterpart will become periodic. So after sampling, let's say my signal was something like this, and this is, it has some, let's say, n samples. So these n samples will repeat. Okay, so that's why we said that, because in this case, in DFT case, the frequency domain signal, we sampled it. So that's why the time domain signal become periodic. All of its n samples will repeat themselves. Okay. Is this, if this is clear, I can go ahead.
Yes, Pulkit.
Okay, awesome. Okay, this is just, these are just some formulas. I think these are obviously available from books also. I have also taken up from book. So I'll just stay here for a minute and I will proceed. If someone has doubt, they can please ask. So this is for continuous time Fourier transform. I'll just read it that this is my continuous time signal. We take the Fourier transform again. You might be noticing that everywhere we are getting this complex exponential. This is my frequency domain signal. So this is the Fourier transform. This is the inverse Fourier transform. So if we have given a frequency domain signal, we can get back our time domain signal. Similarly, we have a formula for discrete time Fourier transform. We have seen this yesterday also. This is again, this is Fourier transform. This is inverse Fourier transform. And similarly, this omega is the normalized frequency. Yeah, there is one.
Here one question I have.
Yes.
When we are converting into a frequency domain, then we are applying the Fourier transform, and then we are getting this complex, right? K omega n.
Yes.
So why we are getting complex LU when we are changing it from like omega to frequency or time to frequency?
I didn't got a question. Why we are getting complex value?
Yeah. When we are changing, means when we are changing it to in this frequency domain.
Meaning that we have one xn and we got x omega, and x omega is complex. Is this
And yeah, no, my question is not even in this, right? When we are changing from this time to frequency, then we are start getting the complex things, right? In a Fourier transform.
Okay.
Before that, we are not getting the complex thing.
One way is to understand is that when we have transformed our signal from time to frequency, so that frequency domain signal will have some phase, will have some magnitude, as well as it will have some phase. So for example, let's assume that our xn is real. Xn is real means its phase response is totally zero. But when I transform this to a frequency domain signal, it need not be real because its phase response need not be zero. So let's say it has some amplitude or magnitude and it has some phase. So I can write x omega like this, correct?
Yes.
So theta omega need not be zero. It is not always mandatory. It represents my phase response across frequency. So this is actually a complex number because this x omega has both magnitude as well as phase. So that could be true. Yeah, that could be true for some special signals. We can take some examples like let's say for some particular signals or for some particular xn's, theta omega can be zero. In that case, x omega will be real. It will not be complex. But for understanding purpose, if we think from a general perspective, x omega can have both magnitude as well as phase. Okay. So one difference that you may notice that Fourier transform, we are using summation. And in inverse Fourier transform, we are using integral. It is a very simple question to answer. Someone can answer why this is so? Maybe you all are familiar, but I just want to say that.
Sorry, Pulkit, can you repeat?
The question is, for Fourier transform, we are doing summation, but for inverse Fourier transform, we are doing integration. Why so?
Because Fourier transform basically comes from, like, the definition of Fourier transform comes from the Fourier series only, where it is representing the summation of all exponential series. But in Fourier series, there is we treat the continuous time as for a periodic signal, whereas here we tends that periodic t to tends to infinity, like this.
Because in frequency domain it is continuous DTFT.
Correct.
So when we do a summation of a continuous signal, it actually means integration.
Yeah. Correct. So the simple answer is, we saw previously, yeah, in this table, that when we are calculating DTFT, time domain signal is discrete, frequency domain signal is continuous. So similar applicable here. My xn is discrete, x omega is continuous. That's why to accumulate a discrete signal, we use summation. To accumulate a continuous signal, we use integral. Just some mathematical concept. Yeah.